Hanging here with us. Good to see there's some yellow and blue in the crowd today. Those of you wearing red, appreciate it. Also, one of my favorite colors. We are going to conclude today looking, that's the goal, you know how that goes. But the goal is to conclude today looking at some of the parables that Jesus told. Then I'm going to go back to kind of where we began with the very first parable in our Bible, which is from the book of Judges, and it's very appropriate, I think, to life today, to the world today. But let's begin over in the Gospel of Luke, please. Chapter 21, verse 29. Very simple, very short parable of the fig tree. Verse 29 now, again, of Luke 21. Then he spoke to them and to us, right, a parable. Look at the fig tree. But then it's not just a parable of the fig tree, is it? He says, look at the fig tree and all the trees. When they are already budding, you see and know for yourselves that summer is now near. So you also, when you see these things happening, know that the kingdom of God is near. Surely I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will by no means pass away. He's been talking there about two things previous to this parable. He's been talking about when Jerusalem is going to be destroyed and when Jesus would actually come to take his people, us, home. When he says these things will not pass away or will not happen, or this generation, let me phrase it this way. When he says this generation will not pass away before these things happen, obviously, he's not talking about his return, because that generation did pass away and Jesus hasn't returned. He was talking about the destruction of the city of Jerusalem. And he had given them signs to let them know when the time, kind of we're thinking about Ukraine, when the time to evacuate is here, you'll see certain things and you need to go. You need to get out. And some of you may have studied the history of the fall of the city of Jerusalem. It was about AD 80, the general, he's a horrible man, Roman general by the name of Titus. He crushed that city. Josephus, who's known to exaggerate, great historian, but known to exaggerate, he said that the blood came up to the horses' bridles in the street. It's just a way of saying the destruction, the suffering was immense. That's not even a word that gets near describing what it was, but Jesus is giving his people here, and in other gospels, Matthew especially, he's giving them a heads up, giving them a time. And then there's parable about the fig trees and the other kind of trees. He said, watch for these signs. When you see certain things, you know certain things are going to follow after them, right? You see a sunrise, for example, you know that another day is upon us. A day is coming. There are certain things that trigger the next step. And he's teaching us not just something that applies to the folks in Jerusalem trying to get out, but it's a principle of life. B follows A, C follows B. There are certain things that go in order, right? And we have essentially orderly minds, well-designed minds, and we don't use them. I don't, like up to our potential, I'm sure, but we understand that when we plant a seed in the ground, for example, and we see it finally starting to break through, we understand, several things from that. We understand that God is providing for us. We understand that better days are coming. We understand that in this case, like summer is coming. We don't see corn stalks coming through the ground in winter as a general rule. So there are things even in our own lives that we've been told about by God that we should anticipate, that we should not be surprised. There, for example, there are certain appointments that we have. We have an appointment with death, Hebrews 9:27. It's appointed man wants to die, then comes the judgment. So we have an appointment with death, we have an appointment with judgment. We're going to see God. There's nothing we can do to avoid those appointments. We can delay the appointment with death, but we can't avoid that if Jesus delays his coming. What we can do is prepare, and that's the purpose of the parable of the fig tree and so many of these other parables. I would guess, I haven't, mathematically counted them or divided them in my mind, but just thinking out loud, I would guess that if you broke all the parables down into categories, maybe as many as half of them would be written or spoken with the intention of helping us prepare, helping us to get ready for that which we should both be so keenly anticipating, which is our meeting with God. And I don't know the day when the meeting will happen. These writers of our Bible, I'm sure that if you told them, it's going to be another couple thousand years before Jesus comes, they wouldn't believe that. When they're using words like at hand, the hour is near, they got to be thinking, not big picture, but small picture. That could be tomorrow. That could be later today. And now it's been 2,000 years approximately. And what can happen? People can get at ease. You have an exciting appointment. And when that time comes and the appointment doesn't happen, maybe, the excitement tends to fade and the anticipation tends to fade. They always, they're never going to show up. When are they going to get here? I was out of town, went up to CYC to raise awareness for some things happening in the world we need to be praying for. And I'm not complaining, I promise you that. Not in a complaining mood, but we had a water leak. It's hard to fix. I can't fix a water leak if I'm standing next to it. It's impossible to fix a water leak in Alabama if you're in Tennessee, right? And so I'm waiting on a plumber to get there. Cell phone, somebody get there. I'm on the way. Long story short, on the way was not on the way, right? And ultimately, you have that. You have the anticipation of something. You have the need of something, and then it gets delayed, and then it can be such an exasperating, such a frustrating thing. But then, it can become, well, is it ever going to happen? We think about that on a trivial level, but on a magnificently important level. Is Jesus really going to come? There's some people that seem to be living a life that says, no, he's apparently changed his mind. He's not coming. There's not going to be a judgment. And even back Ecclesiastes writer talked about the philosophy is eat, drink, and be merry. For tomorrow we die. So we need to squeeze as much party into life right now. No consequences. No consequences here, no consequences in the hereafter. And the reality is sometimes there are no immediate consequences. You'd agree with that? Ananias and Sapphira, I'm thinking. Ananias and Sapphira tell a lie, immediate consequences, right? You and I lie, we still have a heartbeat. And the proverb writer talks about a punishment or a penalty not quickly executed. That can lead to issues. Kind of like in our country, somebody can kill somebody, put on death row. 30 years later, they're still making appeals and they're still living, and that's not much of a deterrent, is it? So we understand that delayed things can tend to cause us to not be as alert to the appointment or as anticipate or making preparation of the appointment. If I said to us, for example, just to throw out, let's say the President of the United States, think of some important part, President of the United States is coming to your house tomorrow. Okay, man, we'd be knocking ourselves out. We would like him or not, it's not the issue. We'd be knocking ourselves out, cleaning, getting stuff ready, thinking what we're going to say, what we're not going to say, who we're going to invite. if I just said, hey, one day the president's going to come to your house, that's a whole different message, and it brings about a whole different response. And if we could just serve and live with the urgency, need to check my messages, as you know, if we could just live with the urgency of the immediate, and you know, the desire, the innate temptation to procrastinate is profound with me, with many of us. If I know, I was this way in school, right? And you may, if you knew you had a term paper due in 2 weeks, when did you start working on that term paper? And I know there's some of you started immediately, and the rest of us resent you. You got to know that. But most of us, if the paper's due in 2 weeks, when did we start working on it, right? Well, I mean, we were kind of pushing it. We're up. I know I never got a good night's sleep the night before a term paper was due. I know I never got a good night's sleep the day before a big exam was going to happen. Why? Because I got good night sleeps and other nights when I should have been studying, I should have been preparing. And so many of the parables we've been looking at, just like this one of the fig tree, just like that one of the 5 foolish virgins, just like that one of the people that were not tending to the needs of others. And Christ said, when you neglected them, you neglected me. But also just like those who did tend to the needs of others. And Jesus said, when you help them, you help me. In Matthew 25, 3 parables told, kind of reinforcing this one. Be in a constant state of preparation. Be in a constant state of readiness. Whenever we were over in Ukraine just a few weeks ago, thanks to you, we were able, and other people, we were able to deliver significant sums of money that help people get prepared. Anna has lots of food, thanks to her brothers and sisters over there. They took the funds and they went with it. They got organized. They took care of all those people, not just in Kramatorsk, but the cities all across Ukraine. They were getting ready for the nightmare. And now those supplies won't last forever, right? But that's the pattern for us, spiritually speaking. Spiritually speaking, one day, the sirens are going to be wailing. It's not calling us to get in a bomb shelter. It's calling us to come up from the grave. Isn't it? It was at John 5, 28, 29. Marvel not at this, Jesus says, for the hour is coming in which all their graves shall hear his voice and come forth. Those that have done good to the resurrection of life. Those that have done evil to the resurrection of condemnation. And so we know that's coming. And he's just talking about those in the graves. What about those not in the graves? So we prepare. And that's why, what you're doing now matters so much. You've come together to worship, to remember what Christ done, to be a blessing to those. And many have come together with us online. And this helps us just in a constant state. We're spiritually buying the groceries. We're getting the water. We're getting fuel for our car. We're getting ready to go. We're getting ready to stay. We're getting ready to go. So to me, even though this is a small, short, some people say insignificant parable, it is the last parable in our Bible. So that's a big deal to me. The last parable in our Bible, first and last kind of stick out. The last parable in our Bible says, get ready. The bud on the tree, the fig tree, that bud is coming out, and we know what happens next. And what happens next for us is we get to go home. We get to go home, and we leave a place where some bad things happen. More good things happen. I know that, and we got to acknowledge that, or we go crazy. Honestly, I talked to somebody in the back there. So wise. I don't watch the news. That's a good idea, because sometimes the news is pretty distressing. But we're going to a place where the news is not distressing, where it's all good always, and we got to prepare. We got to get ready. This parable challenges us to do that, and a host of others. Do you have comments, questions, thoughts? I want to briefly get to that first parable in our Bible. It's so appropriate to our world today. Yes, sir, brother.
Sometimes folks, denominational friends try to apply this to future events.
Mm-hmm.
And he says the kingdom of God is at hand. He's talking about the church.
Yeah.
This generation will not pass till it's fulfilled.
Yeah.
They saw that on the day of Pentecost. They
Yeah.
saw the kingdom of God coming into the city.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of meat on the bone that Doug has shared with us, because in the denominational world, they anticipate a whole different program, right? Where various signs are happening even now, and these things that Jesus said would happen before those folks living then died would happen maybe now or in our lives in some future time. For that interpretation to be true, there have to be some like 2,000-year-old people walking around, and there aren't any. Some of us look like it, or we're on our way to looking like it, but these people died, which means that what Christ was prophesying would happen in their lifetime happened. So what happened? Two big things. The city of Jerusalem was destroyed. By the way, if you study that battle, there was a lull, there was a break there for some reason, and I've read where several of our Christians were able to use that break and get out that didn't get out earlier, and went to a certain area and set up kind of a colony of, we study some of that. It's really fascinating. But so we had the destruction of Jerusalem, but also the church. In Matthew 16, 18, 19, Jesus used the word church and kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven interchangeably. And every time you read about the kingdom of God, before Acts 2, it's coming. After Acts 2, it has come. And one passage said, we have been translated into it. It is in its existence. And we've all got friends, good people. Let's not be drawn into, now we got these wars and rumors of wars, and Putin's talking about nuclear options and the monster. I get that. But that's always been happening. That's all. When is there a time in the history of our world there haven't been wars and rumors of wars? Somebody did some research, I think like 280-something years in the history of the world where there haven't been active, ongoing wars somewhere. People have a gene in them, a conflict gene, it seems like, a predisposition to fight. And we serve the Prince of Peace, Isaiah 9:6. We are of those who adhere to Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. We obey the gospel of peace, Ephesians 6:15. God is not a God of confusion, but of peace, 1 Corinthians 14, 34-ish, somewhere in there. Tough job, isn't it? Being a peaceful person in a world with so much conflict. But if it were a tough job, I guess we wouldn't get the assignment. So we get that, and we do our best. Fail, I do, but we pursue that. Anything else on this that you're thinking? All right, quickly, go to the book of Judges. Judges chapter 9. Some terrible things have happened here, and a scoundrel has been put forth as king who has no business being that, and there's a lot of people were killed, and it's a horrible time, and it all comes back to poor leadership, rotten, horrible leadership. And so this parable comes to us. Judges 9, beginning verse 7, and when they told Jotham this terrible thing that happened to his family, he went and stood on the top of Mount Gerizim and lifted his voice and cried out. He said to them, here's the interesting parable. Listen to me, you men of Shechem, that God may listen to you. The trees once went forth to anoint a king over them. And they said to the olive tree, by the way, is best tree in that region of Palestine, said to the olive tree, reign over us. But the olive tree said to them, should I cease giving my oil with which they honor God and men and go to sway over trees? So the olive tree, highly qualified, would have been a good leader, says no. Now they're going down the line and getting more inferior in ability to lead. Then the tree said to the fig tree, not as good a tree as olive tree, you come and reign over us. But the fig tree said to them, should I cease my sweetness and my good fruit and go to sway over trees? So now we're going on down the line. The tree said to the vine, that's not much of a tree, is it? The tree said to the vine, you come and reign over us. But the vine said to them, should I cease my new wine, which cheers both God and men, to go sway over the trees? The vine says no. Then all the trees said to the bramble, do some homework on a bramble bush. It's not a tree, it's not a vine. It's just a creature of ugliness and pain. I mean, it's prickly. It's not good for much. Maybe birds to put a nest in, I suppose. So they go to this poor excuse of a tree. You come and reign over us. And the bramble said to the trees, if in truth you anoint me as king over you, then come and take shelter in my shade. But if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. And he goes on to fuss at these people, Jotham does, and say, you have made Abimelech. Abimelech may not be a household name to us, but just think, worst man ever, and you can think of some nominations for that, of course. Abimelech's got to be close to the top of the list. Scoundrel of the most colossal order, Abimelech. And he's the guy. He connives his way. He works the system, intimidates, kills, and he is chosen by the people as the man they will follow. And because of that, they go over the cliff. You know, if somebody ahead of you is going over the cliff, you're following, we know where you're going. Okay? No mystery about that. And the point, that's the first parable in our Bible, by the way, as I mentioned earlier. So there is significance. We're always looking for 2022 applications. The parable of the fig tree, get ready, get ready, get ready. The parable of the bramble bush and all the other trees that said no is to those who have the opportunity, which all of you do. Those who have the opportunity and the ability, we have the responsibility to lead in the ways that God permits us to lead. Because if you that are qualified and can be good leaders, if you don't step up and lead, then the less qualified, the less capable will take your place. That is true in every location, segment of life, isn't it? It is true in business. You know, if the more effective aren't hired, the less effective. We got a job shortage in America, and it's showing up in the quality of some things that are happening, or the less quality of things that are happening. It's because the more qualified are busy or saying no or just not available. Okay, and the less qualified step up. You know, it happens in the home. We know that God's desire is for in every home there be a man of God who loves his wife, who adores her as Jesus loves the church, who's bringing those children up in the nurture and admonition. Lord has an example like Abraham had. I know him, just 18:19, for I know him, that he will command his children's household after him, that they will do the way of the Lord. So we know that works best. But we understand that because a lot of men have not stepped up, that there has been a challenge in many homes. We got so many great women that thankfully have risen up and fill the void. But in some homes, as you know, there has been no man. There has been no one. Sometimes it's granny. Grannies are saving the world in a lot of places, you know. But where there is no mom, there's no granny. We got kids raising kids. We got media, we got Hollywood, the internet, the garbage we've been looking at, figuratively speaking, is some lessons recently. You know, where good folks won't raise kids, then the world is more than happy to step in and do the job. Athletically, you know, a lot of you played sports, a lot of you root for sports. You know, if your team, if the star player goes down, he was the star player because he was the best one. Well, the one behind him is probably not going to do quite as well. And that's the way that tragically works. In the church, it can work the same way. If those who can teach won't teach, those who can lead won't lead, for whatever reason, maybe some legitimate reasons at times that we just can't assume a position of responsibility. But then what may happen is because you say no, then maybe the next person can't be quite as effective as you can be in a certain area. So, say yes. Say yeah. I'm not talking about a program necessarily. We don't need a program to be a leader. Jesus said you're salt of the earth, light of the world. Matthew 5:14 and following. So those are positions of influence, those are positions of leadership. Think about your neighborhood. The things that you can do even in your little community there. And if you don't, who will kind of set the mood, set the tone in the neighborhood, the classroom, workplace, family, church. The more capable we are, the more responsible we are to try to do something to help, to lead. Because we don't want the bramble bush to get up there and do what we should be trying to do. Bramble bush can't do what we can do, can it? No. Comments, questions, thoughts, anything you got? Profound silence, that can be a good thing. Brother Kelsey, silence can be good, can it? At times. Anybody? Anything? Think about the gifts that God has given you, the unique things you can do. Maybe cook better, maybe encourage, maybe write a note, maybe just smile. Some can make money. Some can teach. Some can lead singing. Some can keep kids, get a crying kid to be a happy kid. Some can just be a nice person, But everybody is uniquely qualified. When just recently in that place across the pond, we were talking about just in some children's class, talking about snow, because it was snowing outside. I'm such a big kid in heart. I still just love snow within reason. And there's so many unique things about snow, and one of the most unique things about snow is the unique things about snow, that no two snowflakes are alike, and no two people. There's a lot of application of snow and us, but no two people are made identical. Some people look a lot alike, but everybody is different. Unique gifts, unique talents, unique abilities, unique opportunities. And so, like we talked about this morning, looking in that mirror with the help of God and good people that we trust, we try to figure out what our abilities, what our gifts are, and develop them. So we're going to discover, 3 Ds, discover, develop, and deploy. Right? Ephesians 4:11 and following kind of helps us understand that that's a responsibility of good leaders, is to help others to become good leaders. Is it your personality you try to do everything yourself? Because you've been disappointed when you handed it off to somebody else, and if you want something done, you better do it or it won't get done. That kind of, and I get that. We all have some of that, but that really doesn't help the next generation to learn to lead, does it? You always make the bed; they're not going to know how to make the bed, are they? So, we need to teach other people how to go, how to love, how to serve, how to be leaders. I've always thought it's such a blessing when a man comes in as an eldership, if he's got some of the older, wiser guys still there. You get a bunch of 40-year-old guys come in to be elders. That can be a great and wonderful thing. But I'm a little bit old school and think, hey, it's kind of nice to have that guy who's been through it a time or two to put his arm around and say, hey, y'all just stay calm. Everything's going to be fine. That's true in family, work, wherever we are. And maybe if you're struggling, just struggling, think, well, what are my gifts? What areas can I lead in? Consider asking somebody who loves you, who knows you, somebody that you trust. One of my all-time favorite stories. This guy sitting on a front porch in the state of Kentucky. He'd retired from work, but he's healthy. Didn't know what he's going to do, so he day one of retirement, he's out there in the rocking chair, drinking the tea, the lemonade, something like that. After a while, that got old, tired of that. And he decided to do what I'm thinking we all can do, and kind of assess his strengths, weaknesses. And he, about the only thing he knew that he could do pretty well is cook. He cooked chicken. And he had a recipe, got it from his mama, granny, somebody like that, with those 11 secret, spices, ingredients, or whatever. That was Mr. Harlan Sanders. He was retired before he decided, I know what I can do, and I'm going to give it a go. It's amazing what people can do. How many people could have done something or could do something like that who never even consider it, who never even assess themselves? We're not really talking about making chicken sandwiches, but that's not the worst thing. We're talking about making a godly life. And God has given every one of us the necessary ingredients, not just to do that for ourselves, but to help somebody else do that. It's kind of a mantra that's sticking in my heart a lot lately. When we have responsibility, or when we have opportunity, when we have ability, we have responsibility. We have opportunity. We have ability, extraordinary ability. Therefore, we have responsibility. As we talked about last night, to him that knows to do good and does it not, we know what that is. So I love you. I appreciate you. You're such an encouragement and example for me. Anybody? One last thought. Yes, sir, Brother Ed.
Jeff, can I lift this fruit tree, a fig tree, out of context just a little bit back?
Please, please.
It talks about shooting forward,
Yeah.
but it develops. It produces fruit. You take that thought and go over to 2 Peter chapter 1, add your faith, virtue,
Yeah.
knowledge. There's a fruit, there's a result of that growth.
Yeah.
I just pulled it out of context, but
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Progression, growth, maturity. We can't get stuck, right? That's a beautiful, perfect way to end the class. Love y'all. Appreciate you. 5:30. Let's cover you up again, please.